If you could design your dream classroom, what would it be like?
Okay, I love this. So, I can just see it in my head.
Again, I like to think of myself as a decent editor, but no smooth way to get into this video. So if you missed last week's video, part 1 is up, so you might want to go ahead and watch that before you watch this part. But this is part 2 of the Q&A that Kinsey was doing for you guys. So let's just go ahead and get into it.
Did you alter your lesson plans once you learned your students? Kara, when I saw this question, I was super excited for this video. I don't know why this specific question made me so excited, other than there's this huge misconception when you go through student teaching that over the summer before your first year, you're going to have all of your lesson plans planned out, and you're going to have all of your units planned out, and every single activity. That should not be happening for a number of reasons. The first is that you're going to waste your time. Even if you know your school, even if you know the curriculum that you're going to be using, it is a total waste of your time. You don't really know how much you can fit in that block until you're in that time frame. So 90 minutes, you're like, okay, we will do this, this, and this. But you may not get to all those things because you have a really great discussion, or you have an assembly that day, or you have an unannounced pep rally. To answer your question, I make my lesson plans 2 weeks in advance. So I have at least 2 weeks ready to go. If you would like a more detailed video on how I plan and when I do copies and things like that, just to give you a good organizational framework, I would love to do that video. But yes, so on the first day of school, I look at all that data to see what they like, what they don't like, and I know the content that I'll be teaching, but I do not plan the activities or the actual lessons with the engaging hooks and things like that until I see all of that information. So yes and no. I do suggest planning out your content, so knowing how long you want to spend on your units or how long you want to spend on, like, however you teach what you teach. Erica Brianna asked, which lessons or activities are you working on improving over the summer? Erica, love this. You're gonna be a little underwhelmed by my response, but I'm working on all of them. I enjoyed the ones that I did. I plan on, first and foremost, I want to be more culturally responsive. I will be engaging students in more diverse texts. I'm looking to have a class set of The Hate You Give. I'm also looking at different LGBTQ plus novels and representation in the classroom, both with some nonfiction texts that the superhero teacher's putting together, and then obviously some other authors have done as well. Really implementing those and kind of trashing out all of the dead white guys, because that I teach American literature, that's my thing, and that's what all of them are. In our curriculum, which is my perspectives, I have 4 texts that are written by African Americans or Hispanics. That's out of 64 texts. Slashing a lot and changing a lot, and I'm asking for forgiveness later because I think that that's the most important. Second thing, I'm changing all of my activities in terms of how they're delivered. I don't feel like my directions were super clear in some. I don't feel that some had very tight rules, so it was a little easy for some loopholes to happen. For that reason, yes, I'm kind of changing everything up. That's a process, something that I work on a couple of hours every day. An example of this is the very first text we read in American literature in the curriculum I have at the district I'm at is the Declaration of Independence, to look at charged language, so connotation, denotation, positive connotation, negative denotation. And I always introduce it as America's greatest breakup letter. So this past year, both semesters, I just had them looking at it and annotating it, and then we talked about it. Next year, what they're going to be doing is they're going to create an actual breakup text conversation based off of evidence that they find in the Declaration of Independence, which is something you can actually find on an AP channel on YouTube. So I've seen it before, I've shown it, but I'm actually going to have students do it themselves. And then they have to justify the emojis they use, the text they use, XYZ. After that, I'm going to show them the deleted passage of the Declaration of Independence, which is actually a grievance about slavery itself. So they completely took it out because it was too risque, and that's what we're going to talk about. So implementing some diverse representation in there in terms of a deleted passage we never knew about. Erica Brianna asked, what's the most valuable lesson you learned in your first year of teaching? My most valuable lesson I learned in my first year teaching is that you have to be unapologetically yourself. If you expect your students to be unapologetically yourself, which is my expectation, I want them to be authentic, I want to be their unique individual, then I also have to maintain that. You don't need to mute yourself just because you think that it's too new. Nothing's ever too new. Your students are gonna love it, and if you have the right intentions and you're doing the content you're supposed to be doing and you're assessing the skills that you're supposed to be assessing, you're doing your job. And you may not know it at the time because this past semester was hard, being on a cart after being in a classroom, and I really didn't think my students and I were making good connections. And once we left for COVID, I realized that our connections were much stronger than I anticipated. I think that it was because while I was on a cart, I was very transparent about, I don't know what I'm doing on this thing. This is totally new for me. All right, Sarah R. Lawson asked, what would you recommend for high school students who want to be a teacher too? I think that's what she meant. All right, what I would recommend for you is to look into universities that have really great teacher programs. I at one time was looking at a university that didn't even have a college of education, so that would have been interesting. And I would suggest that you go through the true 4-year program just for hiring purposes. If you go in lateral entry, so that means that you had a different degree and you want to be a teacher, so you're doing part of that education at the same time you're teaching, that's fine. A lot of teachers do that. In fact, a lot of the BT teachers, beginning teachers, were lateral entry when I was going through this past year. But you do have a lot more on your plate. You're working, you have finances and things that you didn't have in college, and so you're basically doing college at the same time, and that's a little difficult for some people. So I suggest you go through an accredited 4-year program. Also, if you want to go out of state, know that you may have to do different things to teach back in your state if you wanted to come back. So I know that I wanted to go to the University of Alabama, and if I had done that, I would not be licensed in the state that I live, which is obviously where I would have returned. So I stayed in North Carolina. I went to ECU, which is a huge school for teaching. It was just a teaching school for a while, and it was called ECTC, East Carolina Teaching College. And so they are super well known in the state and in surrounding states for their teachers, and their teachers get hired fairly quickly. My second recommendation would be to volunteer in some sort of way. So when I was in high school, I did a teacher cadet program, and I was a kindergarten TA. That showed me very quickly that I did not want to do elementary. I thought because I wanted to do all these cute things and fun activities that I had to be an elementary teacher, and that was not the case. I enjoy the high school level because of the after school activities and opportunities to advise students in their next phase of life. All right, Sophie, if you could design your dream classroom, what would it be like?
Okay, I love this. So, I can just see it in my head.
So my dream classroom would have a variety of seating, and the ultimate piece that I would love to have are booths, like the booths that you sit in at restaurants.
The universe works in mysterious ways, because shortly after she filmed all of this footage for me, she went looking for some restaurant booths and actually managed to come across some. So she now has these, and she needs to refurbish them, paint them, make them look nice, but she actually got the dream piece for her classroom for next year. So that's exciting.
But I would like to repurpose them to have a dry erase top so that way students can draw on them. And I also obviously want a couple of couches with like a rug and some sort of bigger ottoman for students to sit on or put their feet on. And then I want some beanbag situations, which I have them now. I also really want some sort of high top bar that goes along the back of the classroom with tall stools for students to sit on so they can really be focused if they really need that. English across the top in the marquee kind of letters, or like a neon sign, and like a whole kind of like ice cream bar situation with supplies. So I don't know, it's just, I would love to do all of those things, and those are many projects that I have in the works like over the summer. And I also would like die for a farmhouse table with benches, just because they're super long and you can put a lot of students at them. I hope that like you can see it in your head, but I would love to do something like that. I want it to be really fun. Obviously my LED lights would be in there. Insta wall, like with Polaroids, and like a little section off to the side where students can use the Polaroid camera to capture moments that semester, and they could put it on the wall. Sophie, I want to be a teacher. What's the hardest thing about becoming a teacher? The hardest thing about becoming a teacher is really just taking the test to be the teacher. They're really not that hard. I've taken my English one. I've also taken my science education, so for high school, and I missed it by 12 points, so like 3 questions. I will be taking it again once those open back up because they are closed with COVID right now. I would like to be certified in English at the high school level, science, and history, which history is really easy for English majors just because at East Carolina they have you taking a lot of history classes, so I don't think it would be hard for me to get that certification, but I'm really going for science. So Sophie, again, to answer your question, you will be doing just fine. You're gonna be an amazing teacher, and I'm super excited for you. And you're gonna make me feel super old when you start teaching in 5 years. All right, Daniela 20 said, what did you learn from your first year of teaching about yourself, about school, and about kids? What I learned my first year teaching about myself would be that I am a lot more laid back than I thought, and I know that that's a weird thing to learn about myself, but I used to know that I would be very strict about this and this and this and this, and once I got into the classroom, like I said earlier, I realized that those battles were not worth picking, and I also realized that those things really didn't bother me. About school, I have learned very quickly teaching Honors English 4, Honors English 3, Standard English 3, Standard English 2, that not every student is like me. Not every student is driven by that A. Not every student is excited about coming to school. Many students just skip school, and it's because they've been told to that they're not good enough. You have to motivate kids in different ways. They are all about fruit snacks sometimes. They are all about music sometimes. They are all about the lights. So it's not always about the grade. It's not always about the test. You can't use that as an ultimatum. You have to learn what their incentive is, so that way you can get them to invest in what youif giving them. Daniela 20 also asked, what did you prep the summer before your first year, and what about now? Whew, I wasted so much time, oh, if I could get that time back, on making very specific lessons with very specific times that you learn to do in college, which is such a waste of time. The reason you do it in college is so that way you can metacognitively do that. So it's important to do it while you're in college. But once you get out of college, like, you do not need to do that. You know how long 5 minutes is in the classroom because you've student taught. But I made all of these lessons that I thought I was gonna use because I was told I would teach 9th grade. And this has nothing to say against that school or that leadership. This is an every school thing. This is something that every level, every school, every district, and every state deals with. But they realized that the numbers weren't gonna work out to where I would teach 9th grade, so I got moved up to 12th grade, which was a huge shift. Everything I had made over the summer was out the door. If I could give you any tips for that, it would be to not spend your summer on the content necessarily, other than learning it yourself and kind of looking through it. Spend your summer making things to go in your classroom or things to give out to students or your syllabus, because I found out about 4 days before school started that I'd be teaching seniors. So, oh, and then what will I be prepping now? Great question. Now that I know what I'm teaching tentatively, I'm working really hard on the yearbook this summer just because there's a lot of transfer with information and the editors and people like that, so that's a full year sort of situation, so I am working on that over the summer. Ali Kassan asked how to respond or deal with students who are suffering with depression, anxiety, etc. So mental illness. This is a pretty sticky situation. It's something I wish I could go into a little more detail about so you get a better understanding, but that would give away too much. So this is something I dealt with a lot my first year, and I thought that I was prepared for it, but when you have students, whether they're dealing with some sort of mental illness or they're dealing with foster care and they're coming in and out, you don't know how to take it until it happens. For a student to have to leave your classroom for whatever reason is just really difficult, unless it's just a schedule switch. I think the best way was to normalize that dialogue in the classroom. So just like with LGBTQ representation, you want to normalize that dialogue of what depression is and what anxiety is and how it manifests and things like that. So I was very transparent with my students when I said that I was having a really bad day and that I wasn't prioritizing self-care. So I showed students what that looked like. You have certain expectations, so if they threaten to harm themselves, you tell their counselor, and I talk to counselors regularly just about different things. But yeah, other than that, just being a really good listening ear and normalizing those terms and that dialogue in your everyday conversations. Taylor Barkley asks, how do you create a safe and fun space for students without coming across cheesy? ILY. ILY too. I create a fun and safe space by putting certain things in my classroom. I put these bean bags in my classroom. I put these smelly things. I don't even know how to describe them. Just watch previous videos. I've put these $2 smelly things from TJ Maxx in there for them to smell, which, trust me, kids come in and the ones who need them will quietly grab them off the shelf, bring them to their desk, and randomly smell them. It calms them down. I have the lights. Little things that you know make you comfortable oftentimes are going to make students comfortable. Brondell Eventing asked, how much do you miss your third block English? And that's a great question to end on because, Ella, I miss my third block English class so much. I miss every class I've had so much, and I can't wait to get back, and I can't wait to see you again. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope that you give it a big thumbs up. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, and follow me on social media. It's a really fun time over there, and I ask you questions like these. If you'd like to see another video like this, please let me know in the comments below. I listen to your comments, I look at them. I really appreciate your support, and we are so close to 2,000. I can just feel it. I love you guys. I will talk to you soon. My camera's dying. Bye! I'm so sorry. That's a lot. I told you it should be a two-parter. Want lunch? Hey, wait. You want some lunch? It's lunchtime. Bye, guys.